Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to something a little different. For those of you who have been here for a while, you may know that I started a short-lived sister channel to Solitary Ronin Films, which is called Solitary Ronin Music. But just because I've got to work for a living, it was just very difficult to try and do music videos and film videos as well. But I have kind of done a few music videos on the channel, but obviously it's primarily music. Primarily films even. But I thought, as I recently bought a phonograph, I haven't had a record player for over 20 odd years. I do have vinyl, which I did show off in a video, I think. I certainly did on Solitary Ronin Music before I deleted the channel. So I bought some vinyl. Obviously I had vinyl that I've had since the 80s. But I bought some vinyl just to check what new vinyl sounds like. But I thought, obviously I'm not going to renew my entire collection of CDs. That would be outrageous because I have quite a lot of CDs, as you can imagine, being a collector. But I thought I would maybe start a vinyl project and try and get my top 100 albums on vinyl. Now obviously albums nowadays are a bit pricey. They're certainly more expensive than they were back in the mid-80s when I was buying records, as the kids call them. But I thought it would be an interesting idea to try and get my top 100 in vinyl at least, and just kind of give you updates every now and again for how many I've got. Now I did do a video on my favourite 150 albums, I think, on the channel, but I'll try and cut it down to 100. Now obviously I have to make the list because that was a wee while ago, and obviously that might change. But I do have some that I don't need to buy because I already have them in vinyl, and I'll show them off, and then I'll show you some of the new vinyl that I had to buy just to test how new vinyl sounds and smells and tastes. But here's some that will definitely be in my top 100 and I don't need to buy under the new vinyl project. So we'll start in 1988 with Metallica's And Justice for All. Now some people argue this is their last great album, their fourth album. They've had quite a long career. This is an absolute masterpiece. Yes, the bass doesn't really exist because Lars and James turned it down as a hazing for new bass player Jason after Cliff Burton died. But that makes it even better. Because it's an album that is miserable. It's an album about loss. It is an album about Cliff's death. So it's very dry, very bleak. It's the best lyrics James has ever written. And you can tell it's about loss and how terrible the world is. So that's definitely going to be in the top 100. It's probably in my top 10 albums. Next is a really good debut, Pearl Jam's 10, from 1991. It's just hits galore. I mean, I probably prefer Vitalogy or Vitalogy, but this has got Once, Even Flow, Alive, Why Go, Black, Jeremy. I mean, side 1 is just gold, and side 2 with Oceans, Porch, Garden, Deep and Release isn't too far off. One of the best debuts of all time. Then I remember buying this in a record shop in the early 90s as well. This is Soundgarden's Bad Motorfinger, which definitely probably my top 20 albums of all time. I certainly won't need to buy this one in vinyl. This is just absolutely fantastic. Back to Metallica in 1984's Ride the Lightning, which is again another absolute classic. And this is a lovely big gatefold. So I won't need to buy this in vinyl, as I already have it. I won't need to buy Master of Puppets from 1986 in vinyl, even though I think it's still in one of the few boxes I need to unpack. 1988, yep, lots of 80s. It's Rush and Hold Your Fire. Again, I think I've briefly mentioned this before. I cannot stand the production in this album. The guitars are hardly there. The drum sound isn't great. Don't like the synthesizers. But it's probably my top 20 albums of all time, because the lyrics, by drummer Neil Peart of course, are almost zen-like. Time Stands Still just makes you weep the older you get, and you realise your life is just falling away from you. It's an absolutely brilliant album, even though I hate everything about it apart from the actual essence of the album. It's always voted as like one of the worst Rush albums, but it's not. If you actually see through the production and the lack of guitars and the drum sound and the synthesizers, it is actually a masterpiece. Obviously Slayer's Rain and Blood, it's another top 20. Yes, it sounds like I'm going to have 50 albums in my top 20. Just for that artwork alone, you know, that's quite disturbing. As is the back cover, obviously. But I mean, this is perfect. It's less than half an hour. Angel of Death, Piece by Piece, Necrophobic, Altar of Sacrifice, Jesus Saves, Criminally Insane, Reborn, Epidemic, the Boogie Classic, Postmortem, and Raining Blood. So I don't need to get that on vinyl. For some reason, early Slayer are really expensive in vinyl. King's X, Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, just brilliant. Texan power trio, the most underrated band in history. Just because they're in between two stools, they're too melodic for your hardcore metalers, and they're too heavy and riff-tastic for the other bunch of strange people. Gretchen Goes to Nebraska, definitely in the top 100. Another Rush album, 2112, not 2012, 2112. This was the record that the record company said, if you don't get a winner with this, we're dropping you from the label. You should really write simpler, easier songs, shorter songs. So what did they do? Side 1, track 1 is 21 minutes long, the title track, and it's an absolute masterpiece. It's one of those 21-minute tracks that feels like about 4. And there's the 3 of them in stylish, no wonder the camera went out of focus. Look at those stylish outfits they've got on there. Absolutely wonderful. I mean, they did conform by having 5 songs in the second side, but side 1 is just the title track, which is split into 7 movements. It's just an absolute masterpiece, and certainly in my top 100. So that's the albums that I don't have to buy out of my top 100, because they're definitely in the top 100. Now I'll show you the albums that I've bought since getting the record player, just to test the vinyl out. Now some of these might be in the argument for making the top 100, but they're not well, one of them is a definite. But we'll start with St. Vincent and Daddy's Home. I might try and get all St. Vincent's albums on vinyl just for... And there's a lovely picture of Annie Clark, aka St. Vincent, enjoying some quality reading. This is her 70s tribute album, as if you hadn't guessed by the cover, and it's just absolutely fantastic. But I obviously just got that to test out what vinyl sounds like. This is an argument for the top 100. I had to get a Leonard Cohen. I don't have any Leonard Cohen on vinyl. I do now. This is I'm Your Man. You want a wonderful album cover, just stand in a suit eating a banana. That's all you need. Simple, effective, fruit based, and you get the lyrics on the back. This is just one of those perfect Leonard Cohen albums. Also I'm biased. You get First We Take Manhattan, Ain't No Cure for Love, Everybody Knows, I'm Your Man, Take This Waltz, Jazz Police, I Can't Forget, and obviously Tower of Song, which Nick Cave covered at one point. Yeah, so I'm Your Man may very well end up in the top 100. Opiate by Tool. I'll probably try and get all the Tool stuff on vinyl. You know, just accidentally, of course. This is their initial 6-track EP. And it's absolutely wonderful. Again, this one might be in the conversation for the top 100. This is Eurythmics and Savage. I had this on cassette back in the day, as the kids might say. And also I have it in CD, but I decided to get it in vinyl because it is, I mean, the first side, Beethoven, You Have Placed a Chill in My Heart, Shame and Savage. I mean, yes, there's a couple of tracks on here that are kind of throwaway and I'm not a huge fan of, but the stuff that's good is just magnificent. So that's probably in the conversation. This one's definitely going to be in the top 100. It's Puscifer and Conditions of My Parole. Puscifer is one of the two side projects by Maynard James Keenan, of the singer from Tool, here in disguise. Puscifer started as a kind of joke band with the song Country Boner, which was about having sex with lots of country and western singers. Their first album was V for Vagina. But Maynard being Maynard, they have kind of transmogrified into this really moving, philosophical, metaphysical band. The use of Karina Round as another vocalist. Their voices work so well. This isn't Karina Round, by the way. They've got a sense of humour, as you can see by the back cover. And Conditions of My Parole is absolutely wonderful. And there's Maynard's alter ego in prison. Karina Round is sitting there holding the baby. Yeah, I just had to get this in vinyl because this is definitely in my top 100 albums because it's just absolutely perfect. And I had to get this just to test it out. This is Metric, Formentera, and Friday the 13th, Formentera 2, dropped, as the kids say. This is the tiny CD, which looks really small compared to the vinyl. This is just another wonderful Metric album. They may be the most consistent band in history. They've never made a bad album, they've never even made a good album. All their albums are very good. They're one of those bands that's very difficult to actually say what your favourite one is. Fronted by Emily Haines, daughter of a Canadian poet, and her lyrics are excellent, and one of the few bands that since releasing albums haven't had a lineup change. And this is just another fantastic Metric album. It opens with an 11-minute, 3 songs in one really, Doom Scroller, which is absolutely fantastic. So this is really an album about lockdown, and this is kind of an album about coming out of lockdown. But you can't go wrong with a bit of Formentera by Metric. It's going to be hard to decide which Metric albums actually do go in the top 100. I had to get a Floyd And this is arguably my favourite Pink Floyd album, Wish You Were Here. I like Dark Side of the Moon, but I do think it's a little bit overrated, because some of the instrumental ones I could do without, to be honest. But Wish You Were Here, with the famous cover, is absolutely perfect. I'm a big fan of Animals and also the Pink Floyd album, and I'm one of the few people that I actually really like the vinyl cut, even though it's more of a Roger Waters solo album than a Pink Floyd album. But Wish You Were Here is essential Floyd. Next I had to get a banger. So I got Testaments, The Gathering, the album with Dave Lombardo on drums. It's got beautiful artwork, and it really stands out on long play. There's the back cover with a nice eyes sewn shut and mouth sewn shut image, of course. A lovely sentiment. And this has a gatefold as well with the lyrics and the band. It's weird, this might be my favourite Testament album and it doesn't actually have lead guitarist Alex Solznick on it. It's got James Murphy, who I believe was an ex-Death guitarist. But it's amazing. Again, side 1, DNR, Do Not Resuscitate. What an opener. Down for Life, Eyes of Wrath, True Believer, Legions of the Dead, 3 Days in Darkness. Tremendous stuff, and of course Dave Lombardo's on drums of Slayer fame. And then finally, I had to get a Soen album. I'm probably going to try and get all the Soen albums in vinyl, I'm not lying. This is Tellurian, with one of my favourite covers of all time that I just wanted to get in vinyl to make it bigger. It's a rhino eating tiny little people. Isn't that lovely? He's a lovely little rhino eating little people. And again, this is a gatefold with the lyrics. It's actually a 2 disc set. Soen are absolutely fantastic. They were kind of called like Tool rip-offs, but that's a bit unfair. The singer sounds a little bit like Maynard, but they're kind of a under-radar supergroup with the ex-members of Opeth and various other bands, but they're just so good. Again, another band that to me hasn't really made a bad album or even a good album. They're all excellent albums. And again, trying to figure out what your favourite Soen album or what my favourite Soen album is pretty difficult. So I had to get that just to get that lovely cover. It's a heartwarming cover. The fact that the hippo's got a little crown on as well, that's just nice. Good for him. So thanks very much for watching. Again, I don't know when the next episode will be. Again, I'm not going to go crazy with vinyl just because I now have a player. It's bad enough going crazy with Blu-rays, but I think it's an interesting project to at least have your favourite 100 albums on vinyl. So that's step 1. But again, as I showed you, I won't have to buy 100 albums because I will have some of them already. So thanks very much for watching. This is Solitary Ronin, talking about Solitary Ronin music just for this video. We're back to Solitary Ronin films, as usual, very soon. So thanks so much for watching, and farewell.